This is We All Be, News Free Dixie for the 21st century. See how it works? Somewhere. Can you dig it?
All right, Judge, you hear me?
I hear you.
All right, it's an honor to have you back on. It's been a minute, Judge, but you got a lot going on, and you definitely the man of the hour that everybody want to hear from. How you doing today, or tonight, rather?
All right, I'll manage.
All right, I hope you will. You know, I take a day to day, but I definitely got to ask you because people been asking me, what does the Honorable Judge Joe Brown, who's running for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee in 2023, think about the current situation with the Tyre Nichols tragedy and the 5 officers involved?
Well, let's put it this way. If I become mayor, which is likely, it's going to land in my lap. So I have to preserve impartiality and fairness in this whole thing. And that demands that I take a look at it and see what's really going on. Now, I've been doing criminal law one way or the other for about half century. And going from 0 to 60 in a second and a half, which is what we saw from the first footage, needs an explanation. What's going on here? What's the background behind it? So far, we have none. And my experience is usually that when something goes the way we saw, there's something more to it. Was there some kind of transaction going on between anybody involved in this and the deceased? Was there a boyfriend, girlfriend thing? Was there money owed? Was it an animosity that went back to high school or whatever? And you have to remember the cops that we have are all black, and they range from, I think it's 23 years old to 31. And I may be mistaken with that. The language that they were using reflected what you would hear on the streets here in Memphis. So I imagine that we have a reflection of the culture that exists in this city. That being said, with the majority of the police department being black, 60% of the judges that handle criminal matters being black, 60% of the judges otherwise being female, we have a majority of the jury pool being black. We have a black sheriff, black county mayor. We've got a black chief of police. We've got the first Democratic Party district attorney in decades. And a majority black jury pool in this town. I would strongly suggest that the people but the people wait and see what happens with the justice system, since it ought to work. Now, if it doesn't work, something else is going on. And frankly, I was rather disappointed in the mayor and the chief of police, who seemed to me, with what I heard, were almost attempting to inflame the situation, which is very inappropriate, but let's see. And then you have another thing here. We've got 649 people who have died in the preceding 24 months. And nobody's paid much attention to them. Why, in this case, do we get what we get? Why do we have a release of the video so quickly when there are other families out there who are bereaved and grieving, and they have not gotten any cooperation with the police or the sheriff's department when it comes to being apprised of what happened with the circumstances attendant on the demise of their loved ones? Is there anything different about this case? Since remember, nobody had seen the video with this. This was something that was shown to the family a week before it was released to the public. Why didn't we just have proffered criminal charges, which would have resulted in preliminary hearing and then action of a grand jury, whereas I think, I may be wrong, but in the 50 years I've been involved with this, I think this is the fastest indictment I have ever seen. So is there anything? Remember, we did not know what was going on, but was there any particular situation that required that the family be treated differently than the other 648 victims over the last 24 months? What is this squad doing? Had it achieved a success? Well, the chief claimed that they had made 2,500 felony arrests and gotten 850 mostly stolen firearms off the street that were being used in crime. So why do we have this sudden anomalous behavior that we wound up seeing? And did anybody attempt to see if, in fact, there was previous animus that would indicate that you've got a first-degree murder situation rather than a second-degree? But we've already got indictments right now, so at least two experienced criminal trial lawyers that I know of that are involved in this case. So it might be interesting what develops. So I would suggest to the people, don't get hyped up behind this, because there are some indications that there were failures of leadership, failures of command authority, failure of training, failure of indoctrination, failure of oversight, and there might be other heads that need to roll all the way up to the top. So let's see where this goes. Pay attention to it, but don't let the hype get to you, because there are those who would profit greatly by attention being taken away from the basically inept leadership that they have delivered, or that they are likely to deliver if they get what they want. Also, this is an opportunity to distract from the attention we ought to be paying to some economic matters that impact everybody in this city on a regular basis. And I know there are some monies that are on the table to be spent that could do a great deal of good if they were spent on infrastructure, and a great deal of harm if they were spent as they seem to be earmarked right now for the benefit of a very few when it comes to financial gain. So we'll see how the justice system works. And since black folk essentially control that system right now, or at least people who are nominally representative of black folk, let the system go. People say, wow, it's white supremacy and the system's foul. Well, let's take a look at the NBA, National Basketball Association. If there's any one black professional institution in the country, it's the NBA. Black players dominate it. You've got blacks involved in ownership, coaching, everything you can think of. But one of the most racist institutions in the country at one time was the NBA, until Don Barksdale from UCLA integrated it in 1947 with the Lakers. Now, the rule book hasn't changed substantially, so the rule is the same, the league is composed the same, but now it's not one of the most racist institutions in the country. It is probably one that is most inclusive of black folk from top to bottom. So let's see what our institutions come up with, and if there's any wrongdoing, we need to find out what all of it is and not let anything be covered up. With that said, patience is a great virtue. All right?
Yeah. Well, Joe, I want to ask you this quickly. They said their age range is from 24 to 32. They each served on the department for anywhere from 2.5 to 5 years. And also was disturbing that the tape was so-called video was released The first part of the interaction is missing. That would tell us what was about to stop. That's missing. And then it's like it should be more officers charged or whatever because Sheriff Bonner actually relieved 2 of his sheriff deputies. They are currently under investigation along with the 5 cops. As well as I saw a white cop use a taser on Tyre and suggest that when they caught him, they should stump him. That's what a white cop said on one of the cameras. So do you think that more people should be facing charges? And also, do you believe that Police Chief Davis should resign since she's the one that kind of created this Scorpion Unit thing?
What is the old saying? The buck stops here. The buck stops at the desk of the commander. He who is in charge has to take the blame for what happens under him unless there's excusability, which I haven't seen any. As I mentioned, there appears to be a grave lapse in morale, management, training, exercise of authority, oversight, and it's bad. The thing is how long did it take the command authority to arrive at this scene? Why do we have basically very young officers acting in an organized fashion like this in essentially an unsupervised fashion? There are a lot of rumors out there. There are a lot of things out there on the street and in the department, and morale is not good. The people on the streets in Memphis isn't worked up behind this because most of the people I've talked to have a feeling that something else is there to be discovered, and instead of it being institutional racism against black people, a lot of folk on the street are saying it just looks like same old black on black type stuff, but some of them had on a uniform. So if that's it, that's bad, that's criminal. That should result in vigorous prosecution. If somebody's found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, then appropriate punishment as per the Tennessee guidelines should be meted out. But and remember, everyone's presumed innocent till they're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That's important. But in any event, let's see where we go with this so no stone is left unturned. We have a problem in this area in that our command authority, not just with the police department, but with everything from Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, to the mayor's office, to the city council, to the things that go on around here, have not been subject to appropriate leadership where somebody is trying to show the way and say, follow me, this is the way we go. We don't have that, and we need to get that.
Well, let me ask you this, Judge. I think it's interesting because, like, the media, the internet is undefeated, as they say. One of the cops accused looked like he was a former president of the Omega Psi Phi chapter down at the University of Mississippi, and they had a situation where they had a reputation for scandals of disturbing hazing rituals. And when I look at that footage, it's like if we're doing some type of, like a frat hazing or something, initiation, like a gang trumpet. What's your take on the fact that Omega organizations connected to this, or how does it reflect on black frats and sororities in general as it relates to this situation?
Well, let me say this. I grew up in what's now known as South Central L.A. Wasn't called that when I grew up, but I've seen worse beatings in person. Now, with the Omegas and their reputation for being physical, well, I'm frat, but not Omega. I'm an Alpha, and I got made long time ago, and it was brutal. And you know the reason they had that brutality? It was a very good reason. The frats and the sororities, the black ones, weren't just supposed to be black Greek party organizations. They were supposed to be dedicated to ending American apartheid. In other words, American desegregation. And starting off in 1906, when the first one, my fraternity, A Phi A, came into existence, it was a very dangerous country. So the pledging was designed to see if you were tough enough to be able to resist Sheriff Bubba Jones when he grabbed you and started torturing you, to see if you were going to tell him everything. Now, a certain frat brother of mine, now deceased, who helped with another frat brother of mine, now deceased, to get now deceased old man Withers undeveloped photographs of Emmett Till's body out of the state of Mississippi. One of them got kidnapped by taken into custody by a sheriff and tortured for several hours, but he didn't tell on anybody, and he wound up escaping. So I'm not all that bent out of shape with hazing designed to see if you have what it takes to do what you need to do. Now, I don't know what the Omegas were up to. I am not an Omega. I'm an Alpha.
You know what's interesting, Judge? Ben Crump is a lifetime Omega Psi Phi. So, see, he recused himself as a conflict of interest. I mean,
why? Interest. He's supposed to vigorously represent his client, and I don't know what the Omegas are, but I know on the Alpha side, a whole bunch of judges in Memphis were Alpha. A lot of the defense lawyers were Alpha. One or two prosecutors were Alpha, and that goes up into the national scheme of things, too. See, justice and equity are not something that the frats were against. So your frat membership does not pose itself as something that is against interest when there is manifest justice. And there's nothing in anybody's frat conditions that say you're supposed to protect someone from criminal wrong. If it's in fact that, you're supposed to stop it.
I want to ask you, it's crazy. Like I said, the internet is so much information coming out now. Like I believe Breonna Taylor's mom tweeted or mentioned on social media that Tyre Nichols and her late daughter, shared the same birthday of June the 5th, 93. And also this month marks the 40th anniversary of what you know, Judge, the 70th Street Massacre, where 7 black men were killed under questionable circumstances after a 30-hour police standoff. So what have we learned? I mean, it's 40 years later, and we got the Tyre Nichols thing. So have we learned anything? I mean, you got all this stuff that's going on still.
Some of us have learned, but some of us don't want to listen. Now, Shannon Street, when that happened, after that happened, I was invited by the FBI and a community consortium to go down and witness what was going on with the investigation the FBI conducted and to observe the evidence in the scene. And although nothing came out of it, it was a flat-out murder. They lined a number of the young folk up, head, foot, on the floor, and lining up the rods that show the trajectories of the bullets that went through the floor. They were executed while they were laying down by gunmen who were standing in the doorways of the bedroom where they were slain. So that, I know, was just a flat execution, but nothing ever happened to that. Nothing came out of that. I've been involved with a lot of things that went on around here when it came to where it came around to a lot of things going wrong in this city. And I'm very concerned about police misconduct, but I'm also very concerned about official misconduct from higher up the feeding chain. And I've seen a whole lot of that also. A lot of upscale wrongdoing and cover-up, and also exploitation.
You know, Joe, you said about the 7th Street. It's interesting that you said the FBI investigated the 7th Street massacre. They cleared the officers of wrongdoing, and this is the same FBI that we found out because of your efforts that the gun that killed Dr. King came from them.
Well, you know, what I'm saying is See, to be fair and impartial, if I had not been fair and impartial, and they thought I was not going to be because I have a history of militancy,
Right.
I never would have found out what happened to Dr. King. Dr. King was murdered, not by James Earl Ray, but by a two-man hit team from the fire station that the FBI recruited, that the FBI armed, and the FBI set up, and the FBI covered up. When I went in and saw that Shannon Street thing, the FBI covered that up. Those people in there were murdered in cold blood in retaliation. But we got everybody cleared. So I don't have any confidence in what is done in the name of officialdom. But I would like to see the process at least engaged in so we can see what's there and what the parameters are. All right?
Yes, sir. So you don't believe, I'm asking this because people bring this up to me all the time. So you don't believe the theory that the elements within the Memphis Police Department was involved, like the sniper or the two-man team?
No, they were recruited in Quantico, Virginia, from the sniper school there. The military had a sniper school. It was a Marine sniper school, and the FBI had a training facility there. Here you go,
I know we go on the 60th anniversary of JFK thing. Do you believe the CIA was involved in JFK assassination?
Yeah, so, you have to take what officialdom says with a grain of salt because you can't trust them.
Right.
I was with legal services, that's poverty law, EEOC. I was the first black prosecutor they had for the city of Memphis. I ran the public defender's office as the chief public defender back in the 70s, went into private practice, trained the Capitol Defense Team. Remember this thing? You remember that thing with Ron Ward where I got the youngest person in the world, got his conviction on death row saved and his conviction set aside, and tried a lot of first-degree murder cases, and something's wrong with what I'm looking at, and we don't have the bottom of it. And they need to stop trying to hide malfeasance from top to bottom that led to this. So, that's basically my position right now. It needs to be looked at. And I'm not going to get too much further into it because the next mayor needs to treat this in a fair and impartial way for the benefit of the people that live here. Now, that's all I'm going to say with it.
That's okay. And one more thing, Joe, will you be attending any events related to the Tyre Nichols situation, like with the funeral service or anything like that?
I'm not, because before I attended one, there are 348 others that need to be attended. All right?
That's correct.
648 others, not 300, 648 others. That's how many people have died in this town in the last 24 months.
Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor.
Law firms will take this as a retainer.
It must be a law firm where they hungry as hell. Now you gonna help me with this parole I'm dealing with?